Hello, good evening, everyone, and warm welcome to Business Live. In our headlines, Attorney General begins prosecution against some persons alleged to be involved in the collapse of banks in Ghana. Potential debt restructuring by Ghana likely to take the next 6 to 9 months. That's according to a Singapore-based Red Intelligence. We'll tell you more. 2023 budget to be heavy on fiscal consolidation and value for money projects. We'll share with you some of the latest we have by way of our sources. We've got details of these and many others in a moment. Please stay. Before you could stay with us, I am Pious Kojo Backah. Look at our stories now. The Chartered Institute of Bankers Ghana is using this year's Bankers Week to deliberate on sustainable ways to operations for industry players to support economic growth. The move is to improve professionalism in the financial sector to boost confidence in the midst of the economic challenges. Speaking to Joy Business ahead of the banking conference, which forms part of the 26th Bankers Week, Chief Executive of the association, Robert Jato, said bankers have a role to play in ensuring that the industry is sustainable. We sincerely apologize for that. We will bring you that subsequently. Now, a potential debt restructuring by Ghana is likely to take the next 6 to 9 months. That's according to Singapore-based finance and market research firm Red Intelligence. This may, however, take place after an economic program has been secured by the country from the International Monetary Fund. There's more in this report.
The report projected that Ghana may run out of liquidity by the second half of next year without the assistance of the International Monetary Fund. Also, because the nation has lost market access, it explained that the Finance Ministry is expected to engage with external bondholders in the next few weeks on the country's debt restructuring. However, there are likely to be 2 committees taking shape in Ghana's Eurobond. Red Intelligence also pointed out that at least 4 different advisory firms are working with the government on economic policy and debt management in the context of the sovereign talks with the IMF. However, it says the firms are working with the government on an informal basis as the mandates have not yet been formalized.
Now, reacting to this development, senior finance lecturer at the University of Cape Coast Business School, Siriam Kawa, described Ghana's engagement with international firms during such negotiations as worrying. According to him, such engagements in the past has resulted in the country paying ridiculous interest rates. He spoke on the marketplace.
In Ghana, we have accounting firms, financial firms, other financial institutions that we have in the country. Why do we have to go for firms outside the country? We are looking down upon our people. That is very worrying. Secondly, the debt restructuring. Yes, debt restructuring will come in when we are locked out of the international financial market. Once we are locked out from the international financial market, it's going to be very difficult getting the needed assistance. And we must make sure that we sustain our debt levels in order not to plunge the country into further debt. We heard the president telling us that there will not be any haircut. The debt restructuring, to me, is not only about haircuts, but then there are other options that we are not looking at, where there will be a plea for extension of the period within which we can pay the debt. Some of the debt, for example, the 2015 Euro bond that we went in for, that will mature in 2030. The interest rate on some of these debts are very high. We have 10.75% on the debt. And that debt was guaranteed by IMF. That says that if Ghana defaults in payment of this debt, we are going to pay $400 million on that particular amount. And aside that, Ghana has not defaulted. That debt we are paying it. The interest is outrageous, very high. There are law firms that advise on that particular one. And you realize that we are paying more than necessary as a country on some of these things. So who advised and who gave the authorization for us to go for an expensive debt we have as a country? That is not a way to go.
Sarah Mkawo speaking earlier on the marketplace. But let's move on to our very first story, which of course is our headline story. The Bank of Ghana has stated that banks in the country are now in a good position to support the economic development agenda of the country following the banking sector cleanup. The exercise, which led to the revocation of licenses of 9 banks, resulted in the formation of Consolidated Bank Ghana. Now, the central bank has assured that it will get all persons involved in the collapse of the banks prosecuted, as it supports the Economic and Organized Crime Office to investigate crimes. The central bank has already charged former Chief Executive Officer of defunct Beige Bank, Michael Nyinaku, for stealing. Beige Bank was one of the banks that lost its license. Let's go on to Zoom now and speak to banking consultant Nana Utui Champong for more on this development. And I'm grateful you could join us on Business Live. Now, there are calls that the central bank should be seen to speed up the criminal cases in court to send a clear signal to people who have committed financial crimes in the or committed financial crimes in future. What do you hold, or do you hold the view that this process has unduly delayed?
Well, I wouldn't say whether it's been delayed or not. What I would say is, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Hello?
And I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Now, criminal cases are different from civil cases in the sense that for criminal cases, you got to prove beyond reasonable doubt that the crime has been committed, and therefore, whatever delay that they have occasioned, it probably the lawyers would say was necessary. But now that the case has gone to court, we have to see what happens from now on. Now, from the onset, the Bank of Ghana gave the assurance that they will not leave any stone unturned in investigating what may have gone wrong or otherwise. And therefore, this is part of the process where they are unraveling some of the things that happen and then bring those who may be culpable to book.
Now, some people have also said that the Bank of Ghana must deal with former staff of the central bank who contributed in the collapse of the banks. What's your view on that as well? We've not seen much from that side.
Well, again, they have acted on that basis. One former staff has been dismissed. They made that very public. Then another former staff is also in court, charged with complications in one of the banks that collapsed. So I think gradually things are being done. Now I understand they have formed a special department which is ensuring that the ethical rules are complied with to, well, ensure that nobody, falls into that trap again. They admitted they slept on the job, but now they are more than awake 24/7. So I think the right things are being done as we speak.
Now, do you anticipate that the central bank going after all these persons with a strong case relative to the banking sector laws of Ghana? Do you foresee that?
Oh yes, I think they haven't said they have relented. They are still investigating, and they are not the prosecutors. It's normally the Attorney General who will be prosecuting. So once they finish their investigation and there's a case to answer, they will do the appropriate thing. So I believe that we should have some modicum of patience and await the outcome of the various investigations before we jump to conclusion that nothing is being done. Something I believe is being done, and it's in the interest of the industry, because a clean industry will help everybody, both the banks and the customers alike.
A final one. What signal do you think this would have on prospective or customers of the bank, Beige Bank, in this instance?
So the Beige Bank itself. Well, the thing is, banking is a confidence trick, as they say. That you need to repose confidence in the system, because for you to take your 1,000 or 100,000 to a bank where you don't know anybody from Adam, it means that without confidence, you will not take your money there. So it is very important that at all times the regulator ensures that that confidence that people have reposed in the sector to be able to take their monies there is maintained. So I think anything that will bring out what might have gone wrong and appropriate action being taken is something which will restore the confidence in the sector. So it's good that something is being done.
Grateful. That's Nana Champon. He is a banking consultant helping us appreciate the latest move by the Bank of Ghana and what it means to customers and, of course, the banking industry as well. Now, moving on to some other stories. The 2023 budget that will be presented to Parliament later this month will be heavy on fiscal consolidation and value for money projects. This is what Joy Business has picked up from persons working on the document. George Yafe has more on next year's budget that will be heavily influenced by the International Monetary Fund.
We understand that next year's budget will come up with policies that seeks to check the rising expenditure with further cuts in government spending. It will also outline measures that would help to drastically improve revenue to make up for some of the very important spending that cannot be cut due to the rigidities in the country's budget. Another area that will get some serious attention is the country's debt stock, which has reached more than 400 billion Ghana cedis ending July this year. Government will again come up with programs that would help deal with the fiscal deficit as well as debt accumulation. Minister of State at the Finance Ministry Charles Edubwahin, at a recent engagement in Washington, D.C., on the sidelines of the IMF World Bank annual meetings, also added that there will be value for money in the 2023 budget. Based on what we have picked up, it is still not out of place to describe the 2023 budget as an austere one, but maybe it is still early days yet in terms of the final outcome of the 2023 budget. This because the current negotiations with the IMF would influence the final text of next year's budget. But there are still some questions on the minds of Ghanaians. That is, when will this budget be presented? When will the current negotiations with the IMF be concluded? Will it be before the end of this year? And will it be a staff agreement or a program agreement?
George Yafe with that report there. And we do know that later tonight we'll bring you our special coverage of the Ghana's Ailing Economy 2023 budget to the rescue. That's our pre-budget forum. And of course, we've got great lineup coming up on that program. We've got Professor Peter Quartey, who is the director of the Institute of Statistical Social Economic Research. We have Dr. Priscilla Bafo-Chumesi there as well. We have Humphrey Enyim-Dake, the president of AGI. We also have Dr. Joseph Obeng, the president of GUTA. But ahead of that, editor with Joy Business, Charles Nixon Yeboah, has been giving us some highlights of what to expect later tonight.
Our panel members are supposed to offer solutions in the area of fiscal strategy in terms of how the country will be able to generate enough revenue, in terms of being prudent in spending. Expenditure has become a major problem. We've spent beyond our means. We are spending almost our entire tax revenue to service interest and take care of consumption, which is not good for the country because you need some excess funds to undertake capital projects or investment, which is a necessary tool in terms of development as far as every economy is concerned. So the panel members drawn from academia, the business community, and other stakeholders are expected to discuss issues with regard to expectations for next year in line with the IMF program that we are going to experience, hopefully, by the end of the first quarter of next year. So we have speakers like Professor Peter Quartey from the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research. We also have Dr. Priscilla Bafo, who is a senior lecturer with the Economics Department of the University of Ghana. We also have the president of the Ghana Union of Traders Association, president of the Association of Ghana Industries. We also have the Chief Executive Officer of the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry. We also have other speakers, brilliant speakers.
And you still want to catch a glimpse of that interview or that interaction ahead of the 2023 budget presentation later tonight at 7 p.m. on the JoyNews channel and, of course, on all our social media pages as well. Let's move away from that and stay a while longer on the IMF-related stories. And, of course, the fund and the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management are holding a two-week workshop for financial sector players in the West African sub-region on the importance of fiscal and macroeconomic management in the wake of global economic crisis. Speaking at the opening of the regional course on macroeconomic diagnostics, Deputy Division Chief Institute for Capacity Development at IMF, Borina Yuchiva, outlined the objectives of the workshop. There is more in the following report. Deputy Division Chief, Institute for Capacity Development at the International Monetary Fund, Borina Yuchiva, underscored the importance of the workshop to financial sector players in the West African sub-region in the wake of the global economic crisis.
The expected outcome is for participants to go back to their institution of origins and share this with their colleagues in a way to see exactly how the interrelations work in their economies and in the world.
Delivering the keynote address on behalf of Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Nes Addison, Assistant Director in charge of Governance Department, Richard Homia, stated that the current economic turmoil is only temporal, but will stabilize once engagement with the International Monetary Fund is finalized.
The Monetary Policy Committee recognizes the fact that the current condition is suboptimal and will remain interim until agreements are reached on an IMF-supported program. The committee is well satisfied that the engagement with the IMF has been positive. However, craves early conclusion of the program discussions to help re-anchor stability. The committee noted that outlook for the Ghana cedi has improved, aided by the recent disbursement of the loan from Afrexim Bank of $750 million, the signing of the syndicated cocoa loan of $1.13 billion, and the agreement with gold and oil companies to purchase the repatriated foreign exchange earnings of about $83.9 million.
Director General of YFM, Dr. Baba Yusuf Musa, urged participants to take advantage of the workshop and sharpen their skills to design policies that will enable developing economies restore price stability while maintaining sufficiently tight stance aligned with monetary policy.
The essence of the program is to sharpen the skills of all our policy makers to have the capacity to diagnose the economy properly and propose solutions that will enable all our economies to stabilize the rising prices that we've been encountering, the exchange rate stability, and of course also address all the vulnerabilities and the headwinds that are facing our economies.
The 2 weeks regional course on macroeconomic diagnostics is put together by the International Monetary Fund and the West African Institute for Financial and Economic Management for financial sector players in the West African sub-region. You're still watching Business Live with me, Pious Kojo Backah. Let's now pause for some break. You're still watching Business Live here on the JoyNews channel. Let's move on to some other stories. And players of the creative arts industry are calling for the passage of a law in relation to the development and classification of Film Act to enable them to subscribe to a pension scheme and afford insurance policies. Speaking at the creative arts stakeholders, a pension compensation advocate for performance rights in Ghana, Salim Hanawi, indicated that the lack of regulation to enforce the act has led to many creative people retiring in poverty. Over the years, there have been stories about retired creative people wallowing in poverty due to mismanagement of funds and the lack of knowledge in savings for unforeseen circumstances. In view of this, the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture organized the Creative Arts Stakeholder Pension Conversation to educate industry players on how to plan for retirement. Advocate for performance rights in Ghana, Salim Hanawi, lauded the initiative and urged the government to implement an LI to make the development and classification of Film Act actionable.
All we want is the LI, which is in support, the legislative instrument which is in support of Act 935, must be passed immediately, because in that document And if the president wants to see this document, he should ask the minister or call on us, the advocates that Catherine Afeku sent to Ho, to go and draft that document. That document exists. Apparently, it's in front of Parliament. Put it through the pace. Call for the drafters. We the group that basically drafted, to come and make amendments if there's any, and finalize it and be able to put it in effect to support the Act 935, because an act alone needs an ally, and that ally is ready for it to be actioned. So please, the ally is very important. That would make sure all our economies will be in place, we'll be making our monies, and trust me, we will not die poor. And I can guarantee you that this meeting, not many people within the informal sector will be able to pay their premiums. So it will be a lot of talk shop and nothing else to be, to be gained out of it.
Deputy Sector Minister Mark Okreku-Mante besieged insurers and players in the pension industry to develop tailor-made solutions for the creative industry.
Let's engage. They go back, tailor-made or customized to suit the industry, and then maybe subsequently we can meet them, and then individually people can begin to approach and have their insurance. Because I appreciate the pain of the performer. I've been there before, and then I know that my people, as in the article, sometimes do not also know what's happening on the other side. Even the law, I'm sure they were mentioning the act, the Insurance Act. I'm not sure they considered people like the creative people in even putting the act together. And that's it for Business Live for tonight. I'm Pious Kojo Backah. Do enjoy the rest of our programs. For more news, kindly log on to myjoyonline.com. Great for serving you.